Our presentation is about airplanes. We are going to describe what airplanes are and how they work. Then we are going to discuss the timeline of developments and improvements of airplanes. We are also going to talk about the inventors of the first airplane, Orville and Wilbur Wright, and the influence of their invention on the world. Lastly, we will tell you something about the advantages and disadvantages of the usage of airplanes. An airplane is a powered fixed-winged aircraft that is propelled forward by thrust from a jet engine or propellers. It has a higher density than air and is able to make a controlled flight. It uses the upward force called lift. Lift is caused by the flow of air with a specific velocity around the wing. The air above the wing is fast moving and has a low pressure. The wind underneath the wing is slow moving and has a high pressure. Because of this, the airplane is able to stay in the air and have a stable flight.
In 1903, the first flight of an object heavier than air took place. It was called the Wright Flyer and was made by the Wright brothers, which we will be talking about later. It flew 37 meters in 12 seconds. In 1909, Louis Blériot invented the first monoplane called Blériot the Ninth. It flew 36.6 kilometers in 37 minutes, from Calais in France to Dover in the United Kingdom. In 1914, Lawrence Sperry demonstrated the automatic gyrostabilizer. This made planes fly in a straight line and kept them at the right height. In 1916, he improved it by adding a steering mechanism to create the automatic pilot. Roland Garros flew the first ever fighter plane in 1915. It was armed with a machine gun and took down 5 other planes. In 1917, the Junker G4 was built. It was the first all-metal plane. In 1925, the lightweight air-cooled radial engines were invented. This created the possibility to make planes bigger and faster. In 1933, the first model airliner, the Boeing 242, was created. It could carry 10 passengers.
The Boeing 307 was the first fully pressurized plane. This allowed it to fly at a height of 6,096 meters. This is above the weather, which made it more comfortable for the passengers. It was created in 1938. In 1939, the first completely jet-powered plane was created, the Heinkel HE-178. The Bell X-1 broke the sound barrier in 1947. In 1949, the prototype of the first jet-powered airliner takes its first flight. In 1952, it became a regular passenger jet. In 1969, the most successful airliner ever was made, the Boeing 747. The Voyager flew around the world in 1986, using 1 tank of fuel. In 2006, a double-decker plane was built, the Airbus 350. It is the largest plane ever made. It has enough seats for 555 people. Traveling by airplane is still becoming more and more popular, and people are still trying to improve the airlines and invent new ones.
Orville and Wilbur Wright were the inventors of the first airplane ever. It was called the Wright Flyer. Orville was born on the 19th of August 1871 and died on January the 30th, 1948, both in Dayton. Wilbur was born in Millville and on April the 16th, 1867 and died in Dayton on the 30th of May, 1912. They were bicycle mechanics who got inspired by an article about Otto Lilienthal and his experiments. They contacted the Smithsonian Institution and immersed themselves in the problems of flying. The brothers started to experiment with proto-gliders in Kitty Hawk. They designed a wind tunnel so that they could test their new models of gliders. Besides the wind tunnel and the Wright Flyer, they have never invented anything else, neither in aviation nor for any other purposes. To be able to make an airplane, they needed a motor, which their friend Charles Taylor made for them. They had to find solutions for propellers, transmission of engine power and steering. On the 14th of December in 1903, they made their first test flight, which failed. They knew the airplane wasn't 100% ready, but because rumor was spread that Samuel Langley was going to make his first flight, they had to do it. 3 days later, on the 17th of December, they tried it again, which was a great success. First it flew 37 meters in 12 seconds, and later that day the Wright Flyer flew 260 meters in 59 seconds. Meetings in Europe and stunts gave publicity, respect and awareness. Economically, the brothers didn't really benefit from the invention. Of course, they got paid when they delivered an airplane, but the cost of their new experiments and the production probably were much higher.
Why is your chosen invention so groundbreaking? Before airplanes were invented, the only way to transport cargo or people was by boat. This was much slower, and products with an expiry date could not be shipped this way. The airplane made it possible to do that. It also gave people the possibility to travel to different countries and meet other cultures. Before airplanes were being used for this kind of transport, their main purpose was fighting in wars. Why would your chosen invention be considered influential to the world? As said before, it made it possible for people to travel to different countries and experience different cultures and products. If that wouldn't have happened, the world wouldn't be the way it is right now. What type of legacy has this invention left behind? The legacy that the airplane has left behind is that traveling and transporting is now much faster and easier. Since the airplane has been invented, the usage has only increased. How might this invention measure up to other inventions in history? The invention of the airplane is comparable to the invention of the train and boat. This because just like with an airplane, you can ship many people and a lot of cargo. The airplane is the fastest way of transporting, but the train and boat are less harmful for the environment.
An advantage of traveling by airplane is that it's a very fast way of traveling. You can easily travel far distances in a short time. It's also a very safe way to travel. The possibility of an accident happening is very small, but when it happens there is a really small chance of survival. Another advantage of traveling by airplane is that it's often cheaper when you want to travel great distances than other means of transport. Now the disadvantages. For example, the more aircraft is being used, the more greenhouse gases are being launched into the atmosphere. Airplanes have a high fuel consumption, especially at takeoff. Because of this, the dependence of oil exporting countries is increasing. Traveling by airplane also causes great noise disturbance, in particular in areas around airports. Other smaller disadvantages are that you can lose your luggage at the airport or in the plane, and that many birds die because they get stuck inside the motors. This was our presentation about airplanes. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something. Are there any questions?